Hello and welcome to the Pro Yakyu Report, Volume 1, Episode 41, Domination. I'm Michael Westbay, your host. Now, back in the 1990s, one thing that I noticed happening quite a bit in the Central League was that the team that ultimately took all the marbles was, they were pretty good against all of the other teams in the league, but they absolutely dominated one team. And back then, that was usually the Hanshin Tigers. Now, that domination may have shifted to being against the Bay Stars since the turn of the century. However, what I'd really like to know is dominating one team really an indicator of a champion? Let's dive into the numbers, shall we? Now, first of all, we have 1990. The Giants finished in first place. Hanshin finished in last. The Giants 88-42 for a 677 winning percentage. I mean, the Giants in this year, they beat absolutely everybody. But the Tigers most of all. Against the Tigers, they had 20 wins and 6 losses. And, that wasn't the only team that they dominated that year. They also had a 19-7 record against Yakult and an 18-8 record against Chunichi. They absolutely ran away with the league and were 22 games up on the second place team for 1990. That was just a crazy year. 1991, while the Giants dominated Hanshin, they did finish in fourth place, 8 games behind the league leader. But again, it was Hanshin that they dominated, winning 19 and losing 7 in that season. And Hanshin, once again, finished 6th. 1992 was a little odd. No team really dominated any other team in 1992. In fact, the league itself was so close in 1992 that only 3 games separated the first place Yakult Swallows from the fourth place Hiroshima Carp. Even the last place Dragons finished only 10 games under 500. You Dragon fans might also want to note that Morimichi Takagi was manager that year. 1993 saw the Yakult Swallows absolutely dominate the Yokohama Bay Stars. Yakult winning 22 and losing only 4 against Yokohama that year. Yakult finished in first place, 80 wins and 50 losses, and despite their losing record to Chunichi and a losing record to the third place Giants, Yakult's 22-4 domination of Yokohama is really what propelled them to first place that year. 1994 saw the Hanshin Tigers tie with the Yakult Swallows for fourth place. However, the Tigers were doing so poorly that year against the other Central League teams that it was only a 19-7 record against Yokohama that saved them from either fifth or, even worse, last place. 1995 saw a dual domination going on in the Central League. Both the Yakult Swallows and Yomiuri Giants were 20-6 against the Hanshin Tigers. The main difference between Yakult and the Giants was that Yakult had a winning record against all 5 Central League teams, while the Giants actually had a losing record against both Yakult and Hiroshima. Hanshin that year finished 36 games out of first place with a 46-84 record. 1996 was an interesting year in that both the Giants and Chunichi Dragons had 19-7 records against the Yakult Swallows. But Yakult managed to escape the cellar that year by having a 19-7 record against the Hanshin Tigers themselves. So, with Yakult finishing in fourth, the Giants in first, having a winning record against all 5 Central League teams, it was the Chunichi Dragons who, despite dominating, ended up finishing second. So we had the first place, second place, and fourth place teams all dominating a team that year. 1997 was an interesting year. Yokohama that year had dominated the Dragons 19 wins to 8 losses. And they also had a winning record against the first place Yakult Swallows. However, the Swallows dominated 2 teams. They dominated the Tigers 20 wins, 7 losses, and 1 tie, and even the Giants 19 wins and 8 losses to win the championship. And 1998, oh, who could forget that year? Yokohama managed to win the pennant, and they had a winning record against all 5 other Central League teams that year. That was the year that they won their second pennant in franchise history, the first time coming in 1960. And it was sweet having a 19-8 dominating record against who's basically been a doormat for most of the Central League throughout the 1990s, the Hanshin Tigers. In 1999, the Bay Stars dominated the Tigers again 19-8. However, they had a losing record against the first-place Dragons, second-place Giants, and even the fourth-place Swallows to finish their incumbent year 71-64 in third place. In 2000, while the first-place Giants did have an 18-9 record against the second-place Dragons and last-place Tigers, there really wasn't a true dominating team that season. In 2001, the Central League did a number of things differently. For the first part, the number of tie games greatly increased. I think that was the year that they went from playing 15-inning games to 12-inning games maximum. And it was really reflected in the number of ties. The other thing that happened that year was that the standings were to be decided by the number of wins rather than winning percentage. So that created the odd situation where Hiroshima had a better winning percentage than Yokohama. However, Yokohama ended up being ranked in third. So, Hiroshima, dominating Hanshin 20 games to 7, ended up in fourth place. In 2002, the Giants dominated Yokohama 21 games to 7, and thus begun the era where the perpetual doormat for the Central League was turned over from being the Hanshin Tigers to the Yokohama Bay Stars. 2003 saw the Hanshin Tigers finish in first place for the first time since 1985. And despite having a losing record to Chunichi, Hanshin's 22-6 dominance of Yokohama is what really got them into first place. In 2004, the Yakult Swallows had a dominating 19-8 record against the Bay Stars, but despite having a winning record against Chunichi themselves, were unable to defeat them in the standings, as the Dragons also had a dominating 18-8-2 record against Yokohama. With the start of interleague play in 2005, it got to be a bit more difficult for any one Central League team to dominate another, and especially finish in first place. And I think 2005 makes a good case in point. The second place Chunichi Dragons had a winning record against all 5 Central League teams, except the Hanshin Tigers, with whom they were even at 11-11. However, the Hanshin Tigers had a winning record against the Pacific League, whereas the Dragons really struggled against Pacific League competitors, and that turned out to be the main factor for that year and, for a number of years to come. So let's fast forward to 2013. The Giants this year have given the Bay Stars a good old-fashioned whipping. 18 wins, 5 losses, and a tie. Of those 5 losses, only 1 occurred at Tokyo Dome, as the Giants almost made it 2 full seasons without dropping a game at Tokyo Dome to Yokohama. With 2 games left to go, the Giants have also guaranteed themselves a winning record against all 5 Central League teams. And they even finished interleague play with a winning record, so their dominance of the league is very well reflected in that 13-game spread between them and the second place Hanshin Tigers. That could change, but not by much. And with that, I submit to you this week's Pro Yakyu Report. Thank you for joining me. Until next week, take care.